Tere tulemast Eestisse, tere tulemast Tallinnasse. I'm very glad to be the first panelist here, and very intrigued also by the topic, because I think that all in all there are three topics everybody has a say about. The first one is politics, the second one is medicine, and the third one is education. So no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, no matter what your gender or education or race is, everybody knows how things should be there. And an easy answer to the question that is also on the screen here, what unites us in a multicultural community, definitely one of the answers is that it is education. What I'm trying to do here in my panel is maybe to expand the horizon a little and start off with one of the quotes saying that who does not remember the past lives without the future. And can we have some help? Okay, got it. And just looking back into the history of education in Estonia, I tried to assure you that education in Estonia has been multilingual and multicultural for centuries, so that integration as a topic is not necessarily a new one for our Estonian educational landscape. So that the public schooling started already in the end of the 17th century, and there has been the Swedish time in the 17th century, then homeschooling with a lot of different languages, then various forms of Russian times, and the first schools with Estonian language education, with Estonian as the language of instruction, started in the beginning of the 20th century. What is the picture in the educational landscape today? We can say that majority of schools in Estonia are with the Estonian language of instruction. There are 74 schools with the Russian language of instruction, and respectively 8 schools with the English language of instruction, 1 school with the Finnish language of instruction, and there is a German department in German gymnasium in Tallinn. So that if we look at the picture in general, that the majority of schools already have the Estonian language as the language of instruction. But to expand the horizon a little, we should say that any small nation has the fate of being multilingual. So sometimes I have the feeling that when you speak about integration, when you speak about languages, our focus is too much on the minorities and too much on the immigrants, whereas we have to look when you speak about the educational policies or language policy of the country, we also have to look at the foreign languages, and it is important to bring out that trilingualism has been there since the beginning of the 20th century, so that the main languages from the beginning of the century were Russian and German, and now definitely English is taking over. And we can also look at different periods in learning the language. So the rational arrangement definitely is connected with the languages of our neighbors or the languages of our governors. So whoever was reading the country in a certain period also brought along its language. And very clearly there was the Soviet period period where the main foreign language was the Russian language. Students started studying it in the second grade, sometimes in the first grade, and starting from the beginning of 90s, the first foreign language was the English language, starting in the grade 3. And there have been also some pretty significant language experiments already in the 60s. So I was one of the students who studied at the so-called language specialist school. So it was Tartu Miina Harma Gymnasium, and starting from the beginning of 60s, it became something that was called the language specialist school. It meant that we started studying the English language in the first grade, and we also studied some subjects in the English language, like geography, history, British and American literature, so that when I first, as a methodologist, learned about CLIL, then, well, it was a very clear sign that everything new is something that is a forgotten old, so that these kinds of school experiments were already pretty common in the 60s. And one of the very important periods when you speak about foreign languages and languages, learning other languages in general, was the beginning of 90s, where with the great help from the British Council, American Embassy, Soros Foundation, teacher professional development started, and both me and Vilma belong to this group of people who got professional development and got education, teacher education from Britain, and very obviously it expanded not only onto the teaching and learning English, but also teaching and learning Estonian as the second language and all other languages, so that there was a very, very clear transition from the so-called grammar translation method, where the main aim was to be able to read and translate texts from one language into the other, and back and know the rules like gerund is whatever, or how you form the passive voice, things like that, so that we very smoothly went into the communicative way of teaching and learning languages. And it is also to be stressed in the context of teaching and learning Estonian as the second language, because I believe that this was the time when people whose mother tongue was other than Estonian, in most cases either Russian or the Ukrainian or Belarusian, so that they first learned that it is also possible to speak sort of common language with anybody whose mother tongue is Estonian, rather than knowing that every Estonian marches into the forest on Midsummer's night to collect 9 different species of flowers, and everybody has them under the pillow to have in their dreams the picture of the future husband, stuff like that, because so much of so many materials that were developed to study and teach Estonian as the second language were so far from the actual life and the actual lifestyle of real people, so that they were very cultural, they were very important texts, but definitely not applicable or not usable in the real life. Well, what is happening with languages, teaching and learning languages today? Somehow I do have the feeling that the constant fear for the Estonians and also for people whose mother tongue is not the Estonian language, is that any new language comes instead of the mother tongue, not beside the mother tongue. So it refers to the language of instruction in schools. It also refers to what is happening today in higher education, where the universities, it is very obvious that the universities are slowly but steadily moving towards replacing the Estonian language in higher education for English, so that there are lots of curricula today already that have the English language of instruction. So, but if we could sort of realize and acknowledge the fact that the new language or the other language should not exclude the mother tongue, whatever the mother tongue is, so that the students, well, the small minorities that we have here, Minister Saar mentioned that there are 194 different nationalities living here in Estonia. So some groups are really, really small, so that it could be 10, 15 people, 100 people, so that these children, if their mother tongue is not taught at the school they study at, could and should get their mother tongue classes at home, as well as in different other informal forms of learning, so that having Sunday classes or having weekend classes or summer classes that in informal environment, then definitely something that deserves a lot of attention on so many respects is Estonian as the second language. So having the facilities, having study materials, developing study materials, teacher training, professional development of teachers, also e-learning possibilities, so that the people can study for free everywhere, anytime, for the length that they have at certain points, but also the choice between A, B, C, D, E, F foreign languages, so that at this point the choices are pretty limited, especially on the gymnasium level, because you can start off, when you speak about foreign languages, you can start with one of the foreign languages, let it be English, Russian, German or French in grade 3, then choose another one in grade 6 from what is left over, and choose the third one in the 10th grade. And definitely the question is how to expand the choice of foreign languages and how to make this learning sustainable, because today we see that the main problem is that if you take up, for example, Finnish or Swedish in the basic school, then you do not necessarily have the possibility to continue with this language on the gymnasium level. So really figuring out whether these could be the state gymnasiums that provide a larger variety of foreign languages on the gymnasium level, or once again working out different e-learning materials for those students who actually cannot attend the classes. Then equal status of foreign languages. So once again, acknowledging that any new language is a window into the new culture, and there is no foreign language that is better than the other. And last but not least, once again mentioned in the research earlier, that it is also, if we think about the big population of people with Estonian roots abroad, so we could say that there are about 200,000 people with Estonian origin living abroad. So how to create the opportunities for these people to continue with learning and studying Estonian, because this is something that will enable these people to turn back later if they want to repatriate at some point in their life. And the last slide, my time is up as well. I just say one thing about learning from experience is that it's very important that we learn from our own experience, earlier experience, learn from the experience of our neighbors, and not really trying to apply the models that maybe look or sound good from afar. So that, if we look at all the factors that affect language education and affect integration, then definitely Canada has its model, Latvia or Lithuania has its model, Finland has its model. We should learn from all these models, but be flexible with choosing the model of integration for Estonia. Thank you for attention.